So I get a call from my supervisor telling me that there's a little job that he wants me to go over, touch up, make sure that it looks a little bit better because the painters are here and they're ready to paint. He didn't tell me that I had to fix up the hanging before I started taping. So I thought to myself, why don't I make a tutorial for you guys where I teach you how I fix other people's mistake in case you ever come across something like this. Here we are, right? I'm gonna cut off all the funny flaky plaster, all the broken plaster off, especially with something that big. You can't exactly pre-fill that. It's much easier to just cut that piece off and replace it with another piece. Now, what I didn't want to do is I didn't want to cut into a square, so then I was left with two sides to tape. So I cut it on an angle like that, so I only have one joint to tape. The old plaster is screwed to a metal button, and the button is a little bit lower than the white timber that you can see in the corner. So when I'm screwing it, because the ceiling is not nice and level, the plaster is gonna break, but it is what it is. There's other places that I would like to screw on the ceiling, but I'm afraid if I screw, the plaster will break, so I'm avoiding it. As you can see, the plaster broke right there, but it's okay. I'm gonna go ahead and do the same thing on any parts that might need it. This particular part of the ceiling is definitely one of the worst because the metal is sticking out way lower than the timber that they've got on the sides. So I can't really put too many screws in it, otherwise I'll break that little piece. And it's the only option I had right there. And you can see my other screws up there got the same problem where they've tried to screw and the screw popped. I'm gonna be mixing up 5-minute prop patch, and this is the compound I'm gonna be using for taping, pre-filling, all the way to second coating right before I top. Right, nice and easy. I'm gonna pre-fill any parts of the plaster, any parts of the joints that has a gap or that isn't sitting right. Obviously that little new piece I've just added on isn't sitting right, so I'm gonna pre-fill that. Nice and easy. I'm gonna cut off any flaky plaster and chuck some 5-minute prop patch in it. Pre-fill it nice and easy. Any gaps that I might have where the joint is a little bit open, I'm gonna pre-fill it just like that, nice and easy. All the screw holes, if the person that screwed the ceiling missed, I'm gonna poke that screw hole that he missed, making it easier for me to fill so that the pieces of plaster doesn't keep coming through my compound every time I go to fill it. I'm gonna tweak any screws before I fill that screw hole. And filling a screw hole is nice and easy. You pretty much just want to be filling that screw hole and nothing else. And this is what it looks like once I go through the prep work. And now we're about to get ready to start taping it and making it look better. Right there, I'm working with a fiber fuse mesh tape. I've got a 6-inch with me and a 250mm standard plastering trowel. I've just mixed up 5 minutes again. I'm gonna go ahead and start taping this joint right here. Nice and easy. You wanna fill that joint, make sure that there's enough gear supporting that fiber fuse that you're gonna put up once you fill the joint. Now you need to make sure there's gear on all sides and that the tape is covered. I'm gonna check the tape right in the middle of the joint, exactly where the joint is, because if we don't put a tape on it, it's going to crack. So make sure the tape is sitting exactly where it needs to be, which is the middle of the joint. I'm gonna push and clean off the mud, pushing that tape into the joint a little bit more. Obviously, if you have a crack, example, the little piece I just put up, you want to put a tape on that as well because the tape is going to prevent it from cracking again. Now, once you've done all those steps, you want to put some more mud on top of the joint, right, to fill it now. Because before you were putting the mud for the tape to sit on, now you want to fill that joint just like that. It should look nice and flat, and then you want to clean off all the excess gear on the sides because you don't need that. That's going to cause problems later on, so get rid of it now. Touch up, obviously, any parts that need some extra loving. You can tell that I've never really done much of voiceover tutorial videos. This is my first time, okay? So I'm learning as I am teaching you guys how to patch and fix up broken ceilings. And this is a learning time for the both of us right here. So tell me what you think about my voiceover tutorials, and let me know if I should be making more videos like this in the comments, man. I appreciate you. I'm gonna go ahead and tape my butt joint as well. Similar process, making sure that there's enough gear supporting that joint where my tape is gonna sit, right? Check my tape on there. I just wanna clean off that mud, pushing out all the excess mud out of the joint so that the joint is nice and flat. And I actually like to go over that again one more time just to fill any funny businesses that I might have missed. Just like that, nice and easy. You have to make sure that you do tape anything that has a joint on it. Whether it's a small little crack, whether it's a joint, the tape is gonna stop the joint from cracking. Don't forget that. Just like that, it's nice and done, easy, over. The mud is starting to go off, so I need to push a little bit harder, but it's not too bad, I can still work with it. When it comes to second coating screw holes, as you can see, I'm just putting it on and taking right off, nice and easy. This is step 2. The joints are taped, butt joints are taped. The joint looks nice and beautiful. It looks a little bit better from before, doesn't it? Gorgeous. You always have to scrape your first and second coat, getting rid of any bit of the mud that are just, chilling where they shouldn't be chilling. Making sure that the joint is nice and flat. Flaky paper, gotta go. Okay, I'm gonna go ahead and mix up 5-minute compound. I don't actually recommend that you use 5 minutes because it's gonna start going off in 5 minutes. But you can find other compounds like 25 minutes, 40 minutes, 60 minutes, 90 minutes, maybe even 2 hours. Or you can even go all purpose that goes off in 24 hours if you're still learning to give yourself enough time to be able to do a good job. I'm too good at this. I've done it too many times, fixing other people's mistakes, including my own. And so 5 minutes works just fine. When it comes to second coating, you want to put the mud on using a 6-inch and you want to feather the sides, right? I want to make sure that I touch up all the sides I need to touch up. And I'm going to feather by putting pressure on one side and getting rid of that, big ass edge. I'm going to switch tools and get my trowel out. And I want to be pushing that gear flat to the joint, okay? It needs to be flat. It also can't be overfilled or underfilled. Keep that in mind. So watch your angles when you're doing stuff like that. I'm going to repeat that on my butt joint as well. As you can see that little joint is a little bit too small and the space I'm working on is not exactly very wide for me to do what I got to do. So I've got my 6-inch out to put the mud on and I'm going to feather it like I did before. I'm going to switch tools now and get my trowel and go over that because usually I'll put the mud on with the trowel and clean it off with the trowel when it comes to butt joints. But in this case, that was going to be unnecessary. So I use my 6-inch, making sure that it's nice and flat, of course. All the funny stuff is gone and it looks gorgeous right there. The mud is starting to go off. As you can see, I dropped some mud on the ground. It's starting to go off right there. But I reckon I can catch that and make it work. Which is why I don't recommend you use 5 minutes, okay? The time you're working with, you got to be fast. But I can make it work. So that's what I did. So I can get the job done in a day. I don't got time to be here fixing other people's work like this. This is what second coat looks like. It looks a little bit more filled. Looks a little bit better. Still looks a little bit ugly, but it looks okay. And there you have it right there. Gorgeous, right? I didn't want to put the first and second coat, go home and come back and put a top coat, go home and come back and sand. The painters were ready to do their job. As you can see, they've already started. So I got my heat gun there to heat it up to try and speed up that process right there. And just make it a little bit faster so I can get it done in the day. Getting ready to top coat, put a final coat on. And I'm using final coat from Knauf. I'm going to go ahead and start the topping process right there. Every coat I put on, first and second, if I'm using quickset, I always scrape, right? You must scrape your work. Otherwise, if you don't scrape, it's going to come to your top coat. If it comes to your top coat, it's going to come to your sand. If it comes to your sand, you're going to have to patch it again. Waste of time, so make sure you scraped nice and good, right? So I'm going to go ahead and just fill this joint right here using my big trowel, making sure that I'm wide enough, the full trowel width, and I'm going to touch up all the little angles that I need to touch up like I just did right there. It's a little bit messy, but look, I'm just trying to get out of here. Like I said, I'm just trying to get in and out. Make it work so the painters can do what they gotta do, okay? I'm gonna feather the sides like I did with my second coat. And I'm gonna get my trowel back out and I'm gonna start cleaning it up. The most important thing here is to make sure that you have no edges on your joint, which is why the feathering is important. And you don't wanna be too flat because you still have to sand it back. You want to be 1 mil over so that when you sand it back flat. I'm going to do screw holes just like that. This time I'm leaving a little bit on there, but not too much, okay? Just enough, right? To the point where you can kind of still see the screw hole. I know some people like to put too much on, but you don't want it to be too bulky. You don't want it to be round. That way when you come to sand, you can't send it back flat. That's also another problem. So it's much easier for you to put the mud on and pretty much take 90% of it off when you're doing screw holes, because if it's bulky, it's gonna come through the paint and you can see it when the light hits it. So it's better you're flat than sorry. Just like that. Not the best joint I've ever done. I'm standing right at the very top of my ladder and I can barely reach, but I'm gonna make it work. I'm gonna make it work, okay? I'm gonna repeat the same thing with the butt joint by scraping it, making sure that it's nice and flat before we go ahead and start topping it. I'm gonna try using my trowel, but I can't go the right way, so I went this way because of the situation I'm in. That little butt joint is too small for me to do what I normally do, and it is what it is. So I'm gonna put the mud on like that, and I'm gonna feather it, right? But I'm gonna change the sides. Instead of going how I went when I was applying the mud on, I'm gonna change tactics here. I'm gonna go this way now, making sure that it's nice and flat, same as the joint, but not too flat. I still want like a mill overbuild for the time to sand, so that when I send it back, I can send it back flat, nice and easy. It's not the best thing I've ever done, but it's definitely a pass. I'm gonna give this little project a 10 out of 10 comparing to the state that it was in when I first started. I did this whole thing in less than I can probably say less than 1 hour. Nice and easy start to finish, all 3 coats. Obviously the joints went dry, and I don't recommend you top over things that aren't dry, but because the painters were already starting and I didn't know I had to do this much work, I had no much of a choice and I had to make it happen. But the day of sanding, there was no issues. Everything came out perfect considering what condition it was in when I first started, and it was definitely a pass. I'm gonna go ahead and top everything that I need to top. That way it's ready to be sanded the next day. The entire project from start to finish, including sanding, took me 1 hour and 30 minutes. And I think if it's your first time doing this, it can probably take you a day, but even with that, that's not too bad. I urge you to give it a shot. I hope you never come across any work that is this bad. I hope that your plastering is a little bit better, but if you ever come across something this bad and you gotta fix it, this is how I would do it. Nice and easy, straightforward, basic, my G. You know, as always, I appreciate you. Let me know in the comments if you want me to make some more voiceover tutorial like I did with this one. And we're gonna go ahead and make it happen, guys. Adios and peace out. And there you have it, man. Have a beautiful day, sir. Thank you.